Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in a future." When I was 12 years old, my parents got divorced. I'd been raised in a Christian family, and really in reality, the thing that mattered to me most in life was family. It wasn't too long after my dad left that I started getting really depressed. At 13 years old, I started drinking and started getting into drugs and started hanging out in the wrong crowd. I went from being homeschooled to going into public school. None of my clothes were cool. I didn't fit in. I didn't know how to talk right. It wasn't too long after all of this occurred that my depression really started getting me down. And I remember one night we were partying. I'd invited all of my friends over, and we threw this really big party, and I got absolutely belligerently drunk. You know, one of the hardest things for me in my life was when my dad would get upset with us. Sometimes he was really abusive, and I'd vowed in my heart that I would never, ever, ever hurt one of my brothers and sisters because I loved my family more than anything in the world. But that night, I got in a really big fight with my brother. I ended up punching him right in the face as hard as I could. I'll never forget the look on his face. He was shocked. After I punched him in the face, I left. And I remember I was walking on this gravel driveway. I went for like a mile walk in the rain with no shoes on my feet. When I came back to my house, everybody was gone. And I went in the house and shut the door, and then I just started having these thoughts about how worthless my life was. I went over to the drawer. I opened it. I opened another drawer. I opened another drawer. I started searching for something in my room that I could use to hurt myself. Finally, this one drawer, I found an entire set of razor blades. I started cutting myself frantically. I felt like I just had to do something to end my life, to get it over with. My family was broken. My dad didn't want me. I ended up doing the one thing in my life I never wanted to do, which was hurt somebody that I loved the most. Suddenly, I heard a pounding on the door. I realized that my sister had showed up and come back. She was able to get into the room, and she came running over to me, and she jumped on me. And she pulled away the razor blades from me. And she started screaming and sobbing, and she was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You're like my dad. How could you ever do anything to hurt yourself or leave me?" You know, at that moment in my life, I really didn't know if God had a plan for my life. I didn't even know if I believed in God. But I did know that seeing how much my sister loved me and how much I meant to her made me want to try. And I remember one night, my phone rang, and it was my mom calling me, and I was really busy. I was a student at Walla Walla University, and I had so much homework to do, but for some reason, on this night, I decided to pick up my phone and answer it. My mom was calling to tell me that my sister had just had a seizure. Nobody knew it, but she'd become a terrible meth addict, and what had happened was she'd overdosed on meth, and she went into a seizure, and she fell down in the backyard. When the ambulance people arrived, they told my mom that they were pretty sure my sister was going to die. I remember taking that phone call and not knowing what to do, because one of the people that I loved most, a person who had helped save my life when I tried to commit suicide, was in a place where her life was hanging in the balance. To be honest with you, I didn't know if my sister was ever going to quit using meth. And every time my mom would call me and tell me that she relapsed again, I was afraid it would be the last time that I ever heard of my sister alive. I remember being here at Walla Walla University. It was like I was in a dream. I mean, I'd gone from being a drug-addicted homeless person to being somebody who was getting a really awesome education. You see, I realized that the thing that mattered most to me in my heart my whole life was family, and that was what God was all about. I ended up getting contacted by this little church in my hometown, and they asked me if I would come and speak to the young people at their church. Well, I was so excited because I had always wanted to have the opportunity to share my testimony in my hometown and tell people how God had taken me all the way from being homeless to being somebody who was being used by God to make a difference in the world. suddenly, out of nowhere, my phone rings. It's my sister telling me, "Stephen, I've been clean for an entire year and I'm attending this church, and I just saw that you're going to be coming here and speaking." She told me that she didn't know if she ever really thought she was going to believe in God or want to give her heart to Jesus. She said, "Stephen, I've seen how God has worked in your life, and I respect you and I love you more than anyone that I know in this entire world." She said, "I was thinking about getting baptized at my 1 year clean and sober. And being that you're coming to our church, I want you to be the one to do it." Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans that I have for you, thus saith the Lord. Plans to give you hope in a future." You know, there was a moment in my life when I thought my life was worthless. But when the phone rang and it was my sister on the other end of the line, telling me that she was clean and sober, turning her life around, and that she wanted to give her heart to Jesus, and that she wanted me to be the one to baptize her. It was that moment when I knew that God's promises are true. My name is Stephen Farr, and this is my story.